The scale model that Adrian Kolchak unveiled at the awarding exhibit at the Architectural Design Competition early in the new year resembled his initial proposal in no way whatsoever. The model alerted those who knew him into wondering whether the man had a nervous breakdown or was simply compelled by an inexplicable spite. His subsequent disappearance seemed altogether appreciated amongst those who knew him. One of Kolchak's initial reasons for wanting to become an architect as a teenager was the manifestation of a city represented in miniature. It gave him a looming godlike presence that titillated him. He had created a scale model of an entire city, one divided into regimented grids, the punctuated buildings so angular they could be done on graph paper. The elevations were done on a scale of 1 to 200. Streets were nameless and dully intersected, the boulevards endless. Public resting areas were non-existent. There were no gardens, no benches. No river ran through or near the city. There were only two motorways leading in and out, one to the north and one to the south. There seemed to be no building accounting for restaurants, cafes or bars, churches, museums or libraries. On the other hand, these ridiculous miniatures were juxtaposed with functional, overbearing tower blocks, blocking the open windows of their experimental neighbours as if to spite them with their own disregard for the sun. The residential areas were on the interior, whereas the cultural or commercial buildings, typically in those places, were around the exterior of the city, like an invading army. There was no distinction between housing developed for higher earners and the tower blocks created for council housing or working class rental. Amongst all this, Kolchak had carefully charred and cracked the rooftops. He had sprinkled glass into the roads and turned roadsides into mass graves, small miniature people hemmed in by taxis that allowed corpses to mount. The more delicate miniatures were half eaten by armed assault. Preciously posed plastic bodies hung out of windows in burning buildings, some slumped like bloodied litter in doorways, some were lynched from lampposts. There appeared to be no discernible aggressor amongst the figurines, as if the imagined people of the city were at war with one another for no definite purpose. The miniature frontages were given a time signature by their overflowing shrubbery. Alongside the scale model was a drawing, the streets stripped down to the major roads and central boulevards and ring roads, accompanied by the various horrors each irreverent and intended fault in Kolchak's planning would create. He adorned it with swastikas, sexual slurs and tribal terms from other languages, religious symbols coupled with crudely drawn knives and abstracted torsos, statistics of crime and birth rates, the industrial estates and central parks highlighted as hotbeds for illegal sexual activity. The poster was torn down shortly before the opening, although the city itself was too large to move at such a short notice.